Thank you very much. Are there any questions for this first session? No questions, so move on to session 2, which deals with how to support the development of new skills. I would like to welcome Manuel Arias Maldonado, Associate Professor in Political Science at the University of Malaga, Spain, who will be speaking on the role of the universities and the opportunities available.
Okay, thanks very much. Good morning to everyone. I would like to begin, of course, thanking Luis Sanz, IASP, and the Grow project, the opportunity to be here and talk about this, I think, interesting subject. Of course, I'm an outsider, so to speak. I'm a political scientist, so I don't belong to this world of incubators and science parks, although I'm interested in the issue. And this quality as an outsider will become apparent immediately because of the poverty of my slides. I'm sorry, I'm very unskilled with them. I guess that has to do with the fact that we have, fixed positions. We don't have to impress anyone, so we can just, do this. So my presentation will, I think, connect very well with the one made by Luis earlier on, because I would also like to concentrate on the globopolitan's mindset in order to use his term. So, let me see. Oh, here, sorry. So, the questions that I was interested in answering or in exploring in this presentation is, on the one hand, how can universities assist individuals or SMEs in the process of internationalization, and more generally, what do universities actually do on behalf of this process, on behalf of internationalization? And when I was thinking about this, I thought that first important question was conceptual clarification. What do I mean by what is meant by internationalization and globalization, in order to find out how do universities fit in that wider picture. So, of course, you are familiar with this, but internationalization mostly refers to this increasing importance of international trade, relations, treaties, alliances, etc. So, in principle, it's internationem. It's the nation still is the basic unit of analysis. This has been called by Ulrich Beck, the German sociologist, methodological nationalism. And globalization is a different thing. Globalization is a flow of technology, economy, knowledge, people, values, ideas. And it affects each country differently on account of their different backgrounds, culture, history, etc. So, to my view, if we want to distinguish between internationalization and globalization, although, of course, both terms are very often used interchangeably, without deeper distinctions, globalization could be seen as the unintended side effect of internationalization. Because we internationalize, and by internationalizing, the world becomes more global. And this, of course, has to do with the technologies that we use, and the internet is obviously a key tool of both internationalization and globalization. So, although I'm not going to focus, of course, because you're not here to listen about that, on the internationalization of universities, I would like to give a couple of words about that. Because if universities can contribute to the internationalization of individuals and SMEs, they have to become international themselves first. Otherwise, that's, of course, impossible. In fact, universities are one of the oldest international institutions around. Universities created networks of knowledge and transmission of knowledge since the Middle Age. But a different thing is, of course, the fact that not all universities are internationalized in the same degree. we have provincial universities who are not interested in that, so we have different levels of internationalization. But by that, by the internationalization of universities, we should understand a change process. I have underlined that because it's a change. It's a challenge also for universities, and also for not just for SMS or small firms, from a national higher education institution to an international higher education institution, which means that they have to include in their curriculum and in all aspects of their management this international dimension. So we can define it, and Jane Knight does that in a very interesting article from 2003, as the process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, or delivery of post-secondary education. So this is how universities become international. Which are the drivers of internationalization for universities, which are important also for my subject here? First, of course, the competition to attract the best students on a global level. And obviously, not all universities are in that fight. We have mostly the Anglo-Saxon ones, and then, well, some from Asia, some from Scandinavia maybe, but just a few, apart from those from the Anglo-Saxon worlds. Well, of course, in the Middle East, there are now new campuses installed by American universities, and they try to do some interesting things there. Then we have the influence of the rankings, these famous international rankings made by Shanghai or made by Times Supplement, in which different universities across the world are measured and given a mark. And there is this list that are the shame of governments every time they are published. And they exert some influence because the university wants to be there in that list. In order to be there, they have to become more international in the first place. So this is an important driver for internationalization. Then, of course, I mentioned that earlier, just a moment ago, the very nature of the scientific endeavor knows no borders, because it's a common endeavor, it's a common task. But of course, the fact that it's a common search for knowledge, so to speak, has to be complemented or supplemented by given tools, networks, and institutions that make that transmission and diffusion of knowledge more easy. So there is an increasing pressure on universities, researchers, and the management of universities to go global, which is something that, and it happens also in the field of identities, is sometimes resisted, because it's easier to live in a small cluster, which is provincial or regional, than facing global competition. And finally, and because of the previous reasons, the increasing importance that institutions are giving to branding or developing a strong international reputation. If you want to attract students, if you want to have a good standing in the post-secondary education community, you have to look like, at least, you're global, or you are becoming global. Otherwise, you're not taken seriously, and for good reasons. So, as I said, I'm not going to focus on this, otherwise brief presentation, on the process by which universities internationalize themselves, but I will have to mention some aspects, as I have done just now, when describing their wider role in internationalization. And my main claim here would be that universities are agents of internationalization, I would add key agents of internationalization, that increasingly become also actors of globalization, while at the same time they are affected by these processes and they mutate themselves. Not all of them, just those which wants to play the global game, so to speak. So how can universities contribute to internationalization, which is the answer, the question that I posed at the beginning of the presentation? They can promote it and help individuals and SMEs in two main ways, I think. On the one hand, a general but indirect one that has to do with the creation of the international or cosmopolitan or globopolitan mindset. And secondly, a more specific, direct one that does not derive from their, so to speak, ordinary operations, but it's channeled through particular programs, partnerships, allegiances, and counseling activities. Like the PTA here can give some examples about that. And the European Union, I think, is in itself a good candidate for this example. But as I'm not an expert in this particular field, I will concentrate on ideational or cultural factors rather than particular devices or programs. But also, not just because I'm not an expert in the particular details of how you can create programs, exchanges, etc., but also because I think that these ideational or cultural factors are more important than these particular channels or programs, etc. Because the latter will be at the end created if there is this will, if there is this orientation towards the international, towards the global. And in that respect, given the age in which students enter into the university, universities are, as I said, key in providing a socialization in the global mindset. And I will talk about that now, leaving that other more technical aspect aside. So how they actually contribute? And the ones that do not do that, they should change track. I mean, they should contribute in that way. So on the one hand, I think that universities are privileged spaces for intellectual, symbolic, and affective exchanges among professors, researchers, and students from different backgrounds. Of course, you need to attract students from different backgrounds in the first place. By affective, I don't mean love stories necessarily, but familiarization with people from other cultures and origins. In such spaces, you have ordinary classrooms and programs and exchange programs, of course, like Erasmus, Fulbright, workshops, grants, etc. The habit of internationalization is created and nurtured, or should be created and nurtured. While, of course, networks are forged linking different institutions and groups. So, an international orientation is fostered by universities. This can be done in different ways, and of course, it requires, in principle, the cooperation of the students, but in the proper setting, in the proper institutional context, a student should be compelled to become more international. But of course, in turn, this can only happen if and when universities themselves demand these outcomes from both professors, researchers, and students. And in this respect, and I think Spain is a good example of that, unfortunately, the government must push universities to do that. Because otherwise, if universities have autonomy to decide what they want to do, and they are comfortable in their, as I said earlier, provincial or regional context, probably they will not go global. They will not internationalize themselves. And in the economy of the 21st century, which has been very accurately described in its changes earlier on, this is key for a country. No country can survive without an enough degree of internationalization, at least on the part of its elites. So, if the universities are themselves enough internationalized, they can act as cosmopolitan makers, or globopolitan makers, if we stick to the term proposed by Luis. As I said earlier, socializing students at this critical age in the global mindset that is required in the current century. And this maybe, it should be underlined here that many students or social groups, you can see that in Spain, I think also in Italy, in the Mediterranean countries for sure, they don't feel or see the need to become global. And that's the main problem. They don't even feel the need to learn English, for instance, which is a minimum requirement in the global age. You need at least two languages, not just one. And it is here where, again, probably governmental agencies should make an effort. Because some, for instance, some provincial or regional entrepreneurs, they are not aware of the fact that competition is increasing out there After the fall of the Soviet Union, emerging markets are booming. They will have some, of course, some bad times, and now it's a difficult time in places like Brazil, for instance, but this will be overcome, probably. China is about to surpass the US in terms of, global contribution to GDP, etc. So these forms of life and these ways of making a living are threatened by global competition. And the European Service Directory of Liberalization of Services has never been fully implemented, and I guess that it will come. This time will come and it will be fully implemented, and this competition from abroad will be stronger. So it is important for the health of a country, so to speak, that this is done more convincingly. And so universities, I think, they can make the world familiar to young students. To begin with, by making it comprehensible. I have sometimes students who are not able to read a text in English. So how can we expect that they have a global, wide picture of the world? And by picturing the world, I think, as the natural stage for working and living in the 21st century. And these are the psychological and emotional aspects that we were alluding to earlier, as opposed to this methodological nationalism that I also mentioned. So global elites are thus produced. But we also need a globalized middle class, not just a globalized elite. So that a country can operate, as I said earlier, in an effective way in the interconnected and integrated markets of the 21st century. So, of course, student mobility is central to this dynamic, but not all students can be sent abroad simultaneously. So, as the OCDE has underlined, internationalization at home is also important. So you can teach in English, for instance. You can create tools via your digital or virtual webs so that people are forced to face this globalized aspect of the world. I should be able to give a text in English to my students, for instance. And additionally, of course, they provide multicultural socialization that teaches skills that are also needed to make business and to connect with other groups and cultural backgrounds. Because otherwise, and this is a problem in countries where students don't leave the parental home when they go to university. That happens in Europe, in many cities, especially in the, of course, Mediterranean shores. People do not realize how diverse the world is becoming. And this is also something that universities should take care of. And I think that is the place to do that. So another question that was also mentioned earlier, universities are key agents in the creation of hubs that gather the members of the creative class, or now we should say the new creative class, because the original notion by Florida has been partly outdated. And connect them with other agencies and institutions. Of course, public institutions of any kind, SMS, firms, chambers of commerce, etc. So they become, or should become, international hubs themselves. Not just in the campus, but in all kinds of connections that the campus can make within the cities and the regions they inhabit, and of course, ideally, globally. And by doing so, of course, they can create these fruitful partnerships with those other institutions in order to help, that was our earlier question, individuals and SMS directly with the process of internationalization. And yes, I will be concluding soon. So lastly, before I conclude, universities or departments, individually considered, are also epistemic communities. They create knowledge. And they should also internationalize knowledge. The best ones do that. And the good knowledge is almost naturally internationalized. Because of what counts is the quality of the knowledge and not the origin of it. And by spreading these research habits and connecting multiple researchers in different places, through research projects, as this one that we are celebrating here and concluding, as well as cooperating with firms and SMS in fulfilling this, I would call it, innovation imperative that is driving the economy in our days and fuels this socio-economic system. And the innovation imperative does not only have economic effects, of course, it has very deep social and, at the end, cultural effects as well. Universities then become central, or should become central actors in the internationalization process. Of course, Cambridge University is already global and is a key agent in this process. Malaga University, well, so, we're trying. But again, this requires the will to act internationally on the part of these institutions. And in this regard, interestingly, SMS and science parks, and they can help universities themselves by pushing them in that direction, by asking things from them, by proposing projects, partnerships, European grants, etc. Needless to say, the role of governments is even more important, but this closeness that can be developed between a university and a science park, a knowledge park, it can be very fruitful in terms of this reciprocal interaction, of this pushing of both of them. So, as conclusion, again, universities are central agents in the general process of internationalization that produces as a side effect an increasing globalization of national societies. And I think that crucially they promote or can promote internationalization by internationalizing themselves, given this pivotal role that they play. I would say that this has been even increased or strengthened in the last decades in generating knowledge, transmitting worldviews to students, and connecting different actors across the innovation process. As I said earlier, they are one of the oldest international institutions, and I think that we should value both the particular help that they can provide to individuals and SMS in terms of programs, etc., but also this international ethos that they can foster and that will at the end produce these particular skills or tools that are needed in this process. And that was everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your insights. The next speaker is Mario Raposo, Professor of Marketing and Entrepreneurship of the University Beira Interior, Portugal, who will be discussing the options and tools for encouraging knowledge sharing and transfer.
Okay, thank you. So, good morning all of you. As you know, I begin speaking when I must finish in terms of time, so I am a little late, so I'm trying to reduce my presentation. I have done a very large, but stay, of course, the presentation for you. So, it is supposed that I speak about some tools to encourage knowledge transfer, and I divide my presentation in three areas. First, I'm speaking about knowledge transfer and some numbers about innovation. Second, about the role of the universities. And third, something about what we are doing in our university. So, as you know, the term of knowledge transfer is now very known and very useful, and everybody use the model. Science, the Hectovit showed the triple X model that shows it's very important that we have an engagement between universities, government, and industry, and the integration of these institutions is very important to increase the transfer of knowledge to society. So that's why it's so important today speak about knowledge transfer. Most of this discussion about knowledge transfer is focused about the spin-off business, about the license and intellectual property, about the outputs of the university. And this is a very important area that countries must support to develop and to make some impact in the economy of the countries. That's why the knowledge transfer today is so much important. Of course, that when we speak about knowledge transfer, we just not speak about the transfer and spin-offs. We speak about people, because when students graduate and the professors go to society, they make the transfer of knowledge. Also with the publication, the papers, the articles, and the events that we organize in the university, we make also knowledge transfer. Also the collaborative research with industry is so much important. When the university and the professors and researchers make some collaborative projects with industry, we are making knowledge transfer. Also, the consultancy that is done from the university to firms is known as knowledge transfer. Also, the licensing is an aspect very important, because when the ideas are patentable, we can transfer them through license. And of course, one of the most known and where I'm much engaged is the new business and the effort that all universities done in help the startups and spin-offs of these researchers to society. But of course, this is an image of several areas that happens in the world. And this happens, why? Because when the economists study the relationship between innovation and the GDP per capita, we show this curve that is there. And this, as you can know, you can see, when we increase the amount in innovation, they are increased in the GDP per capita of countries. So this is a question of money. We have to invest more in innovation if we need, of course, to have a more GDP per capita in countries. This is a relationship between these two variables. But when we see the countries and what we spend in innovation, we have here the countries of OCDE, and we see that the most countries that the most invest more in innovation are the countries that have a good life and have a better GDP. Of course, that our countries, Portugal, Spain, and Italy, are the countries that invest low in innovation, so we have problems in our GDP product. And if you see the crisis that happens now, the crisis affects the countries of the south of Europe, Portugal, Spain, Italy, and Greece. And so if we have correlations, of course, the problem is that we have few innovation, and without hacks, we cannot have homeland. So it's a question of invest more innovation, not only the public sector, but also the firms. We can see another numbers. You see the Global Innovation Index rankings, and as you see, Portugal, Spain, and Italy are in the end of the list of countries there, and in the top are the countries more developed in the world. So again, as you can see, the problems of innovation. Another number of COTEC, another organization that study innovation, show that the most developed countries have an highest investment in innovation, and again, Portugal, Spain, and Italy and Greece are in the last countries that support innovation. And also, another study, if you want to see, is a new study that studied the 125 regions. Europe is the red eye. Red eye, the Regional and Entrepreneurship Development Index, is developed in London Business School by Professor Erka Ocho and Zoltan X, and show that our regions, when we divide our country in regions, Portugal, our regions is above 100 place, so we are in very bad positions because we have low investment and innovation. So after these numbers, what can we speak about the role of the university in this globalized economy? Of course, the economy and the society growth in this age of knowledge depends the development of knowledge and how this knowledge goes to the economy. So the transfer and the economic system and the universities play an important role in each of these files, even in production of knowledge, transfer of knowledge, dissemination, and the usage of knowledge for technological innovation. So the role of universities in this economy, globalized and economy of knowledge, was to improve and to make an effort to help that the knowledge developed inside the university goes to society. So we have now a new concept of the university, the entrepreneurial university. This means that all the universities must provide opportunities, practice, and culture and environments that help students and graduated and researchers to make this transfer of knowledge from the university to society. So this is an imperative of the higher education because this has a great impact in the economy of regions and countries, and the universities must respond entrepreneurially to society and to the demands that now the countries support in the universities. And of course we can see that also in the programs of European Union that is linked to support the relationships between universities and companies and and gives money to increase that relationship. So we can see in this graphic how the basic research and applied files could make the translation to the society, and the university in this can act as a spillover mechanisms that try to make much more value from the knowledge and what's discovered in the university when this is transported by the economy. But we have a problem. Why? Because some things happens when we try to put research in commercialization. We have a problem that is called and known very well as the dead valley. Many of the research never goes to society because it's very difficult to get and to make relationships between what's happening inside the university and outside. That's why through the entrepreneurship, create the entrepreneurial spirit among the members of the university, we try that some of these ideas go to society through spin-offs, through startups, try to help that the technology doesn't lose before to go to the market. So the entrepreneurial university have now a new role. You must act as a facilitator knowledge spillovers of the university, as a solution, as provider user, must work in the ways of demand orientation done in development of knowledge from their own pleasure. There must be flexibility in management of the universities. All the management must be oriented to help this new challenge from the universities, and also the university must promote some knowledge spillovers and to make the technology transfer, office incubators, science parks, and so on, to help to change this in the society. Also, the entrepreneurial university must promote the creation of science parks, incubators, technology transfer office, patent protection arrangements, and so on. Also, they must encourage a wide range of interdisciplinary activity within the creation of interdisciplinary departments and either departments, centers, Also, they must recruit entrepreneurial staff and appoint entrepreneurial leaders and change agents, of course, to open the academic post to a wider contribution via adjunct and visiting appointments, and so on. So this is one thing that is developed on this paper by Mr. Alan Gibbs, was a merit professor of Durham University, and he produced this paper where he challenged the university to become more entrepreneurial in the future. So to finish, I wish to present our case university. We are a small university in Portugal, but we are trying to do our job. And our job begins some years ago when we try to make the training of professors and teachers inside the university to being more entrepreneurial. So, first of all, we create and participate in a network of universities that offer the first European doctoral program in entrepreneurship and small business management. Of course, that the people must train first, and after the training, we can add to do these things. So, first we create a program. Second, We establish a new research unit whose researchers, this main job is research in the area of entrepreneurship. Why? Study the problems to solve problems. That's what we do here. And after we create some masters in entrepreneurship, and we introduce in all courses some models of entrepreneurship for all students, for all areas, to become entrepreneurial in all courses inside the universities, in social science, in business, engineering, exact, health science, and so on. So this is the example of our doctoral program. After we create the TT office, the Technology Transfer Office, the Office of Projects and Intellectual Property, we participate in the international conference and organize them in there. RENT is the top conference in entrepreneurship in the world. We have organized that in our university in 2008. Also, we developed books in this area. These 3 books, of course, myself participate in all of them. The books is about entrepreneurship and the growth economic, and the knowledge transfer from universities. Of course, it's very important that we try to spread the knowledge around the world and what we have done. And also we support the creation of institutes to support startups. Our leader partner in this project, Grow Parcourbis, is a project mine that I developed in '98, and after a group of investors picked the idea and create the Parcourbis, is there. This is, as you see, this is the office of the installation of Parcourbis. And now we have developed a new incubator in the area of health science. Is investments of 5 million euros, finish the beginning of this year. I can told you that at this moment we have inside the UB Medical 5 spin-offs from the university. We are improve on the track and do more transfer from the university to business through these areas. You can say, okay, but why do you do this? Because we do a benchmark international. And when we see the best in the world, we try to do the same. So we see from Harvard as the best incubator as a biomedical accelerator, he has a great success, and we do benchmarking. That's why we do in our university. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, most interesting. Are there any questions for the audience? No? We will now have a coffee break for 25 minutes, so please make your way down to the hall below where we have some refreshments, and the workshop will resume at 11:30. Thank you.